Una stood at the edge of the dirt road and looked at the broken shack in front of her. The roof had fallen in on one side. The wooden walls were black with age and rot. Wild grass grew up to her waist all around it. The windows had no glass, just dark, empty holes that looked like dead eyes. She was 52 years old. 3 months ago, she had buried her husband Do-Yun after 23 years of marriage. Now she was here, alone, standing in front of the worst property in all of South Korea. Her daughter Ji-won had called her crazy. Her brother Tae-soo had said she was running away from her pain. Maybe they were both right. But Una did not care anymore. She just wanted silence. She wanted to be far away from the apartment in Seoul where everything reminded her of him. His reading glasses on the knit stand. His old slippers by the door. The crossword puzzle he never finished, still sitting on the kitchen table. The shack cost almost nothing. The old man who owned it had died 15 years ago. No family came to claim it. The local government just wanted someone to take it off their hands. When Una saw the listing online, she bought it without even visiting first. Now, looking at it, she almost laughed. It was worse than she imagined. Much worse, but the mountains around her were quiet. The air was clean and cold. The nearest neighbor lived 5 kilometers away. There was no one here to knock on her door with food and sad eyes. No one to ask how she was feeling. No one to remind her that Do-Hyun was gone. She set up her tent beside the ruined shack. She had brought enough supplies for 2 weeks. After that, she would drive to the small town at the bottom of the mountain for more food and water. That was her plan. Simple, quiet, alone. The first 2 nights passed without trouble. Una slept poorly, but that was nothing new. She had not slept well since Do-Hyun died. During the day, she walked around the property. She pulled weeds. She made lists of what needed to be fixed. She tried not to think about the empty space beside her in the tent where her husband should have been. On the 3rd night, something changed. Una woke up at 3 in the morning. At first, she did not know why. The night was quiet. No wind, no animals. Just the heavy silence of the mountains. Then she felt it. A vibration. Very soft. Coming from below. She pressed her hand against the ground. Yes, there it was. A low hum, almost like a heartbeat. It seemed to rise up through the earth itself. Una got out of her tent. The stars were bright above her. The broken shack stood dark and silent. But the humming continued. She walked toward it slowly, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Inside the shack, the floor was covered with old leaves and dirt. Parts of the roof lay scattered around. Una swept her flashlight across the room, looking for anything unusual. She saw nothing but rotten wood and shadows, but when she stood very still, she could feel the vibration through her feet. It was stronger here. She went back to her tent and told herself it was probably just some underground water. A spring, maybe? Or pipes from some old construction project. Nothing strange. Nothing to worry about. But she did not sleep for the rest of the night. Over the next few days, Una started cleaning out the shack. She was not trying to rebuild it yet. She just wanted to see what she was working with. She carried out piles of dead leaves. She pulled away broken boards. She swept the floor with an old broom she had brought from Seoul. Every day, the humming continued. Every night, it seemed to grow a little louder. On the 7th day, Una found something. She was pulling up the rotten floorboards in the corner of the shack. The wood came apart easily in her hands. Beneath it, she expected to see dirt or stone. Instead, she saw metal. It was a hatch. Perfectly round. About 1 meter across. Made of some silver-gray material she did not recognize. There was no rust on it, even though it must have been buried for years. Decades, maybe. When she touched it with her bare hand, it was warm. Yuna sat back on her heels and stared at it. She should call someone. The police. The government. Someone official. This was clearly not normal. Metal hatches did not appear under old shacks in the mountains. But Yuna did not reach for her phone. Instead, she ran her fingers along the edge of the hatch, looking for a way to open it. After a few minutes, she found a small groove. She pressed it, and something clicked. The hatch swung open silently, revealing a dark hole beneath. A ladder led down into the darkness. The humming was much louder now. Yuna went back to her tent and made herself some tea. She sat outside and watched the sunset behind the mountains. She thought about Do-hyun, about how careful he always was, about how he would have insisted they call the authorities before doing anything stupid. But Do-hyun was gone, and Yuna was tired of being careful. She was tired of doing the sensible thing. She had been sensible her whole life, and where had it gotten her? Alone on a mountain with a broken heart and a strange hole in the ground. When the stars came out, she picked up her flashlight and went back to the shack. The ladder went down a long way. Yuna counted the rungs as she climbed. 10, 20, 40. The air grew cooler but not cold. The humming grew louder with every meter. At the bottom, she found herself in a tunnel. The walls were smooth stone, but they were lined with strips of soft blue light. Not electric light. Something else. Something that seemed almost alive. Yuna walked forward. Her heart was beating fast, but she was not afraid. She felt something else instead. Curiosity, wonder, a feeling she had not felt since she was a young girl. The tunnel opened into a large chamber. The ceiling curved high above her head like the inside of an egg. More blue light covered the walls. In the center of the room stood a pod. It was about 2 meters tall and shaped like a teardrop. Its surface was smooth and slightly wet, like a living thing. Tubes connected it to the walls and floor, pulsing gently with faint light. And inside the pod, floating in pale liquid, was a creature. Yuna stepped closer. Her flashlight was useless here. The blue glow from the walls was more than enough. The creature was shaped like a human, but it was not human. Its skin was black and shiny like polished stone. Its arms and legs were too long. Its fingers had too many joints. Its face had 2 large closed eyes, but no mouth at all. It floated in the liquid like a person sleeping. The tubes connected to its body pulsed in rhythm with the humming that filled the chamber. Yuna stood there for a long time. She was not scared. She was not even surprised, somehow. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment her whole life without knowing it. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quiet and gentle, the same voice she had used to comfort Do-hyun during his final days. "You poor thing," she said. "How long have you been alone down here?" The creature's eyes opened. They were large and dark and full of something that looked very much like pain. They looked at Yuna. They saw her. And Yuna, the lonely widow who had come to the mountains to escape her grief, looked back. She did not run. She did not scream. She just stood there, one broken thing looking at another. "It is okay," she said softly. "I am here now." The creature's eyes stayed open. They were the color of deep water at night. No whites, no pupils. Just dark pools that seemed to hold 1,000 years of loneliness inside them. Yuna did not move. She stood very still, her hands at her sides, and waited. She had learned patience from 23 years of marriage. Do-hyun had always needed time to find his words. She was used to waiting. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air around her seemed to vibrate. A voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was soft and strange, like wind through metal pipes. "You are not afraid." It was not a question. The creature was studying her, trying to understand. "No," Yuna said simply. "I am not." "Why?" Yuna thought about this. Why was she not afraid? She was standing 40 meters underground, looking at something that was clearly not from Earth. Any normal person would be terrified. I do not know, she admitted. Maybe I am too tired to be afraid. Maybe I have already lost the thing I feared losing most. Maybe I'm just too old to care. She paused, then added, or maybe you do not look like something that wants to hurt me. The creature's dark eyes blinked slowly. The tubes attached to its body pulsed with soft light. The humming in the chamber changed slightly, becoming almost gentle. I have waited here for a very long time, the voice said. I had given up hope that anyone would come. How long? Yuna asked. 817 of your years. Yuna let this sink in. 800 years. This creature had been sleeping beneath the ground since before her country even existed in its current form. Since before most of the nations on Earth had been born. That is a very long time to be alone, she said quietly. Yes, it is. The liquid inside the pod began to drain slowly. Yuna watched as the creature's body settled to the bottom. The tubes detached one by one with soft clicking sounds. After a few minutes, the front of the pod opened like a flower blooming. The creature stepped out. Standing, it was taller than Yuna by half a meter. Its body was thin and elegant. Its black skin caught the blue light and reflected it in shifting patterns. Up close, she could see that its surface was not smooth but covered in tiny scales, like a snake made of obsidian. It had no mouth, no nose, just those two enormous eyes and a face that was somehow both alien and beautiful. My name, the voice said, is difficult for your kind to speak. You may call me Kira. I am Yuna, she replied. It is nice to meet you, Kira. If the creature found this greeting strange, it did not show it. It simply nodded its head in a motion that seemed almost human. I need to tell you why I am here, Kira said. You deserve to know the truth. Yuna looked around the chamber. There was no place to sit. The floor was smooth stone. She was tired from climbing down the ladder, and her knees were not as young as they used to be. But this did not seem like the kind of conversation you had while sitting. Tell me, she said. Kira's eyes seemed to grow distant, looking at something Yuna could not see. My people are called the Watchers. We are very old. Older than your species. Older than most life in this part of the galaxy. For millions of years, we have traveled between the stars, looking for young worlds with the potential for intelligent life. Why? Yuna asked. Because we believe that life is precious. That intelligence is a gift. That every species deserves the chance to grow and reach their full potential. Kira paused. The patterns on its skin shifted and flowed like water. When we find a promising world, we send sentinels. 12 of us, always 12. Our job is to watch over the young species, to guide them, to help them avoid the mistakes that have destroyed so many civilizations before. You were sent here, Yuna said, to Earth. Yes, 817 years ago, 12 sentinels came to your world. I was one of them. What happened? Kira's eyes closed for a moment. When they opened again, they were filled with pain. Our ship failed. Something went wrong with our engines as we entered your atmosphere. We crashed in these mountains. The impact killed 11 of my companions instantly. I was the only one who survived. Yuna felt her heart ache. She knew what it meant to lose everyone you loved. I was badly injured, Kira continued. My body was dying. The only way to save myself was to enter a healing sleep in this pod. I expected to sleep for 50 years at most. By the time I woke, my injuries would be healed, and I could find a way to complete my mission. But something went wrong, Yuna said. Yes, the crash damaged my pod systems. Instead of 50 years, I slept for 8 centuries. The equipment that was supposed to wake me never activated. I only woke now because my power is finally running out. Kira looked down at its hands. The black scales seemed duller than before, Yuna noticed. Less alive, I am dying, Kira said. My pod can no longer sustain me. I have perhaps 6 months left. Maybe less. Yuna was quiet for a long time. She thought about her husband, about how the doctors had given him 3 months and he had fought for 5. About how she had sat beside his bed every day, holding his hand, telling him stories, refusing to let him go. 6 months is not nothing, she finally said. Kira looked at her with surprise. Most beings would focus on the end. On the loss. I have had enough endings lately, Yuna replied. I prefer to think about what can be done with the time that remains. There is nothing to be done. I have failed my mission. My companions are dead. My people do not know what happened to us. And your species. Kira paused, and something like wonder entered its voice. Your species does not need my guidance anymore. What do you mean? I was supposed to help humanity grow, to teach you, to guide you toward the stars. But you did it yourselves. While I slept, you built cities. You flew through the air. You touched the moon. You created machines that think. Kira's eyes met Yuna's. We thought your species would take 10,000 years to reach this point. You did it in less than 1,000, without any help, without any guidance, just through your own stubborn will. Yuna could not help but smile slightly. We are a stubborn species, she admitted. My husband used to say that our greatest talent is refusing to give up. Your husband, the man you lost. Yes, Do-hyun. He died 3 months ago. I am sorry for your loss. The words sounded strange coming from a creature without a mouth, but they were sincere. Yuna could feel it. Thank you, she said. I am sorry for yours too. 11 friends is a heavy burden to carry. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there in the blue-lit chamber, 2 beings who had lost everything, finding an unexpected connection in their shared grief. Finally, Yuna made a decision. I am going to go back up to my tent now, she said. I need to sleep and think, and probably eat something because I have not eaten properly in days. Kira nodded. But I will come back tomorrow, Yuna continued. And the day after that, and every day until we figure out what comes next. Why? Kira asked. Why would you help me? I am a stranger. I am not even your species. Yuna looked at the ancient creature. She saw the loneliness in those dark eyes. The same loneliness she saw in the mirror every morning. Because no one should die alone, she said simply. And because I came to these mountains looking for solitude. But maybe what I actually needed was someone else who understands what it feels like to be the one left behind. She turned and walked toward the tunnel that led back to the ladder dot at the entrance. She stopped and looked back. I will bring soup tomorrow, she said. You probably cannot eat it. But caring for someone starts with feeding them. That is what my mother always said. Then she climbed the ladder back up into the night dot above ground. The stars were bright and endless. Somewhere out there, Kira's people were still watching over other worlds. And down below, in a chamber that had been silent for 800 years, a dying creature stood alone and felt something it had not felt in centuries. Hope. True to her word, Yuna came back the next day. She carried a thermos of hot soup in one hand and a small bag of supplies in the other. The climb down the ladder was easier the second time. She knew what to expect now. Kira was waiting for her in the chamber. The creature had moved away from the pod and was standing near one of the walls, studying the fading lights embedded in the stone. The power is dying faster now, Kira said without turning around. Opening the pod accelerated the decay. Then we had better not waste time, Yuna replied. She set down the thermos and pulled out a small folding chair from her bag. I brought something to sit on. My knees are not what they used to be. She unfolded the chair, sat down, and looked up at Kira. Now, tell me everything. Over the next several hours, Kira told her story. The Watchers had been traveling the stars for over 2 million years. They had guided hundreds of species from primitive life to interstellar civilizations. They had made mistakes along the way. Some species had been pushed too fast and destroyed themselves. Others had rejected their guidance and fallen into darkness. But many had succeeded. Many had joined the community of intelligent life that stretched across the galaxy. "We are not gods," Kira explained. "We do not create life. We simply help it grow. We are gardeners, in a way, tending to young plants and hoping they will bloom." "And humans?" Yuna asked. "What were you supposed to do with us?" "We were supposed to watch first, for several centuries, to understand your species, your strengths, your weaknesses, your potential." Kira's eyes grew distant. "We saw a species that was creative and curious, aggressive and compassionate. You could build beautiful things and destroy them with equal passion. You were chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous." "That sounds like us," Yuna agreed. "We were supposed to begin making contact around this time. The early 21st century. We had plans. Careful plans. We would reveal ourselves slowly, help you develop cleaner energy, show you how to heal your plant, guide you toward the stars. But you crashed. Yes, and while I slept, you did all of those things on your own." Kira turned to face her fully. "You are building machines that capture the sun's energy. You are exploring your solar system. You are even beginning to understand the secrets of life itself. All without us." There was something in Kira's voice that Yuna recognized. It was the same feeling she had when Ji-won graduated from medical school. Pride mixed with a strange kind of sadness. The realization that someone you wanted to help no longer needs you. "Maybe we would have done it faster with your help," Yuna said gently. "Maybe we would have avoided some of our worst mistakes. But we did it. That is what matters. That is exactly my point." Kira sat down on the floor, folding its long limbs beneath it. "Your species was never meant to advance this quickly. The average time for a world to go from basic agriculture to space travel is 8 to 12,000 years. You did it in less than 5,000. And in the last 200 years alone, you have changed more than most species change in a millennium. Is that good or bad? I do not know. That is what troubles me. Your species is not following any pattern we have seen before. You are not like the others we have guided. You are something new." Yuna considered this. She poured some soup from the thermos into a small cup and sipped it slowly. "My husband would have had a lot of questions for you," she said. "He was a professor, history. He spent his whole life trying to understand why humans do the things we do. What did he conclude? That we are impossible to predict. Every time someone thinks they understand us, we surprise them. Sometimes we surprise ourselves." Kira made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had a mouth. The air vibrated pleasantly. "Your husband sounds like a wise man." He was. He was also stubborn and messy, and forgot to take out the garbage every single week for 23 years. Yuna smiled at the memory. "But he was mine, and I loved him." "Love," Kira repeated. "This is something we have studied in many species, but humans experience it more intensely than most. You form attachments that last entire lifetimes. You grieve for years when those attachments are broken. It is both beautiful and painful to observe. It is both beautiful and painful to experience, too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The blue lights pulsed softly around them. The humming of the dying machines filled the air like a lullaby. "Can I ask you something?" Yuna finally said, "Yes. Do your people feel love? Do you form attachments like we do?" Kira was quiet for a moment. "We are different from humans in many ways. Our emotions are not as intense as yours. We do not feel joy or sorrow as deeply as you do. This allows us to observe without interfering, to watch civilizations rise and fall without being destroyed by grief. That sounds lonely. It is. It is. But it is also necessary. If we felt as strongly as you did, we could not do our work. We would become too attached, too involved. But you do feel something. Yes, we feel connection. When I was with my 11 companions, there was a bond between us. Not love as you understand it, but something similar. A sense of belonging, of purpose, of not being alone in the universe. Kira's eyes closed briefly. When they died, something inside me broke. I had been broken ever since. Yuna set down her soup. She stood up from her chair and walked over to where Kira sat. Then she did something that surprised them both. She sat down on the cold stone floor beside the alien and placed her small human hand on its arm. Kira's scales were smooth and cool to the touch. Beneath them, she could feel something pulsing slowly. A heartbeat. Or something like it. "We are both broken," Yuna said. "That is okay. Broken things can still be beautiful. Broken things can still be useful. And broken things can help each other heal." Kira looked at the small woman beside it. This strange, stubborn creature who had climbed down into the darkness and refused to be afraid. Who brought soup to an alien who could not eat. Who sat on a cold floor just to offer comfort. "Your species is remarkable," Kira said softly. "In 800 years of watching you, we never truly understood what makes you special. But I think I am beginning to understand now." "What do you mean?" "You adapt. You connect. You refuse to give up on each other, even when it makes no logical sense. Even when you have nothing to gain." Kira looked down at Yuna's hand on its arm. "I am dying. I cannot help you reach the stars. I cannot guide your species. I cannot complete my mission. I have nothing to offer you." "That is not true," Yuna said firmly. "What could I possibly offer?" Yuna squeezed Kira's arm gently. "Company, stories, a friend who understands what it means to lose everything and still keep going." She smiled. "That is more than enough." From that day forward, Yuna visited the chamber every day. She brought books and photographs. She brought news from the world above. She brought games and puzzles and music played from a small speaker. She told Kira about Do-hyun, about their first meeting at a bookstore in Seoul, about their wedding on a rainy spring day, about the daughter they raised together, about the way he held her hand every night as they fell asleep. And Kira told her about the stars, about worlds where the oceans were purple and the skies burned with 3 suns, about species made of light, about civilizations that lived for millions of years, about the endless wonder of a universe that was so much bigger and stranger than humans could imagine. They were an unlikely pair, a grieving widow and a dying alien. But somehow they fit together. And in that dark chamber beneath the mountain, 2 broken souls began to heal. 3 weeks passed. The leaves on the mountain began to change color. The air grew colder. And Yuna's daughter Jiwon finally lost her patience. "Mom, you have not answered your phone in 4 days," Jiwon said when Yuna finally called her back. "I was ready to drive up there and drag you home." "I am fine," Yuna replied. "Better than fine, actually. I have been busy." "Busy with what?" "You are living in a tent next to a collapsed shack. What could you possibly be busy with?" Yuna looked at the hatch in the floor of the ruined building. She thought about Kira waiting below, about the secret she had been keeping, about the impossible decision she now had to make. "Jiwon," she said slowly, "I need you to come here. There is something I have to show you." Jiwon arrived the next morning. She was 30 years old, a doctor at a hospital in Busan, and she had inherited her father's sharp mind and her mother's stubborn spirit. When she saw the state of the property, She immediately began lecturing Yuna about safety and sanity and proper grief counseling. Yuna let her talk. She made tea on her small camping stove. She waited until Jiwon had run out of words. Then she said, "Follow me." She led her daughter into the shack. She showed her the hatch. She watched Jiwon's face change from confusion to disbelief to something like fear. "Mom, what is this?" "Climb down and see." Jiwon went first. Yuna followed. When they reached the bottom, the blue lights of the tunnel guided them forward. Jiwon was silent the entire way, her hand gripping her mother's arm tightly in the chamber. Kira was waiting. The alien had grown weaker over the past 3 weeks. The patterns on its skin moved more slowly now. The glow in its eyes was dimmer, but it still stood tall as Jiwon entered the room and stopped dead in her tracks. "Mom," Jiwon whispered. "What is that?" "This is Kira," Yuna said calmly. "She has been alone for 800 years. I thought she might like some company." For a long moment, nobody moved. Jiwon stared at Kira. Kira watched Jiwon. Yuna stood between them, watching them both dot. Then Jiwon did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She started asking questions. "Are you sick? Injured? What kind of medical support do you need? What is your biology like? How does your cardiovascular system work? Do you have blood? A heart? Can you describe your symptoms?" Kira looked at Yuna. "She is a doctor," Yuna explained. "This is how she shows love." Over the next several hours, Jiwon examined Kira as best she could. She asked hundreds of questions. She took notes on her phone. She drew diagrams. She tried to understand an alien biology that was completely unlike anything she had ever studied. "Your cells are breaking down," she finally concluded. "The energy that keeps you alive is running out. Without your pod, your body is basically starving at a cellular level." "That is correct," Kira said. "I have perhaps 5 months left now. Maybe less. Can we extend that? Transfer you to a hospital? Find better equipment?" Kira made the air vibrating sound that Yuna had learned to recognize as a sad laugh. "Your hospitals cannot help me. Your technology is advanced for your species, but it is not designed for my biology. There is nothing your medicine can do." Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Yuna could see her daughter's mind working. The same expression Do-hyun used to get when he was trying to solve a difficult problem. "What about your technology?" Jiwon asked. "You said your ship crashed. Is there anything left? Any equipment we could use?" "The ship is buried in the mountains, about 3 kilometers from here. Much of it was destroyed in the crash. But some systems might still be functional." "Like what?" "There were medical pods on board, more advanced than the one I used here. If any survived, they might be able to slow my deterioration." "Why did you not mention this before?" Yuna asked. Kira's eyes turned toward her. "Because I did not believe any human would care enough to try. I am a stranger, an alien. I have nothing to offer your species. Why would you spend time and resources trying to save me?" Jiwon looked at her mother. Then she looked back at Kira. "You have been watching humanity for 800 years, she said slowly. "But I do not think you understand this at all." She pulled out her phone. "Mom, I need to make some calls. This is going to take a few days to arrange. Can you stay here?" "I was not planning to leave," Yuna replied. Jiwon nodded. Then she climbed back up the ladder and was gone. 3 days later, a small team arrived at the mountain. Jiwon had called in every favor she had. There were engineers from her university, researchers from a private technology company, a geologist who specialized in underground surveying. None of them knew what they would find. Jiwon had only told them that there was something important buried in the mountain, and that she needed their help when they climbed down the ladder and saw Kira for the first time. Most of them wanted to leave immediately. A few wanted to call the government. One of them started crying, but Ji-won held them together. "This is a dying being," she said firmly. "An intelligent creature from another world who has been alone for 8 centuries. We can help her, and we are going to help her. If anyone wants to leave, leave now. But if you stay, you are going to help me save a life." Nobody left. Over the next 2 weeks, the team worked around the clock. They used ground-penetrating radar to locate the buried ship. They dug carefully through rock and soil. They found the wreckage exactly where Kira had said it would be. Most of it was destroyed beyond repair. But in the heart of the ship, protected by layers of metal that had somehow survived the crash, they found something incredible, a cargo hold, full of Watcher technology. There were medical pods more advanced than anything on Earth. There were data crystals containing information about thousands of other worlds. There were tools and machines whose purpose humans could not even guess. But most importantly, there were schematics, designs, instructions written in a language that Kira could translate. "This is everything we brought to help your species," Kira explained. "Clean energy technology, medical advances, propulsion systems for spacecraft. All of it was meant to be given to you over centuries." Slowly, carefully, Ji-won looked at the glowing crystals in her hands. "And now? Now it is yours. All of it. Consider it a gift from a dying friend." The team worked through the night. They connected one of the medical pods to the surviving power cells from the ship. They transferred Kira into the new pod. The effects were immediate. The glow in Kira's eyes grew brighter. The patterns on her skin began moving faster. "How do you feel?" Yuna asked, pressing her hand against the pod's transparent surface. "Better. Stronger. The deterioration has stopped." "For how long?" "I do not know. Years, perhaps. Maybe longer." Kira's dark eyes met hers. "You have given me time. More time than I ever expected to have." Ji-won joined them, exhausted but triumphant. "The medical pod is stable. We can move her to a proper facility where we can study the technology and keep her safe." "And the other things we found?" Yuna asked. "That is going to change everything." Ji-won shook her head in amazement. "Mom, do you understand what this means? Clean energy. Cures for diseases we thought were incurable. Faster than light travel. We were going to figure all of this out eventually on our own. But this technology could save us decades, centuries." Yuna looked at Kira. "You came here to guide humanity," she said. "To help us reach the stars. Maybe this is how you do it. Not by watching us from above, but by being our friend." Kira was quiet for a long moment. The pod hummed softly around her. "I came to save your species," she finally said. "Instead, your species saved me." Yuna smiled. It was the first real smile she had worn since Do-yoon died. "That is what we do," she said. "We find broken things and we fix them. We find lonely things and we keep them company. It is not logical. It is not efficient. But it is who we are." She pressed her forehead against the pod's surface. "Welcome to humanity, Kira. We are glad you are here." 3 years passed. The world had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. The technology recovered from the Watcher ship had been studied, adapted, and shared. New power plants were being built that could provide clean energy for entire cities. Medical treatments that once seemed like science fiction were becoming reality. And in a newly constructed research facility in the mountains of South Korea, humanity was preparing to send its first message to the stars. Yuna stood on the observation deck, looking out at the massive communication array that stretched across the valley below. She was 55 now. Her hair had more gray in it than before. She walked with a cane on days when her knees hurt. But her eyes were bright, and her spirit was strong. Beside her stood Kira. The alien looked different now. Her body had been rebuilt using a combination of Watcher technology and human engineering. She was neither fully what she had been nor fully human. She was something new. Something that belonged to both worlds. "Are you ready?" Yuna asked. Kira looked down at the array. Thousands of people had worked on it. Engineers and scientists from every country on Earth. They had used Kira's schematics as a guide, but they had made countless improvements and innovations of their own. The final design was a true collaboration between species. "I have been ready for 800 years, Kira replied. "And I am also more afraid than I have ever been." "That is normal," Yuna said. "Being afraid and being ready are not opposites. They can exist at the same time." The door behind them opened. Jiwon walked in, followed by her husband Minho and their young daughter Hana. At 2 years old, Hana was still too young to understand what was happening today. But she would grow up in a world that was very different from the one her grandmother had been born into. "The team is ready," Jiwon announced. "We can send the message whenever you want." Kira turned to face the young family. She looked at Hana, who was playing with a small toy in her father's arms. The child was not afraid of her at all. To Hana, the tall black-skinned alien was just another member of the family. Someone who attended birthday parties and holiday dinners. Someone who told wonderful stories about faraway stars. "What will the message say?" Minho asked. "It will be sent in my people's language," Kira explained. "It will say that the Earth mission did not fail. That one sentinel survived. That humanity is ready to meet others in the galaxy. And that you found a family here," Yuna added softly. Kira's eyes met hers. After 3 years, Yuna had learned to read the alien's expressions. She could see gratitude there, and love, and something like peace. "Yes," Kira agreed. "That too." They walked together to the control center. It was a large room filled with screens and equipment. Scientists and engineers sat at workstations, making final adjustments. When Kira entered, everyone stood. Not out of fear, but out of respect. "We are honored to have you here," said the director, an older man named Junho. "This would not be possible without your guidance. This would not be possible without your determination," Kira corrected him. "I provided information. Your species provided the will to use it. The difference is important." Junho smiled and nodded. Then he turned to his team. "Begin the sequence." The room fell quiet. Screens flickered with data. The array outside began to hum with power. Through the windows, they could see the massive dish turning toward the sky, pointing at a distant point in space where Kira's people had last been known to exist. "Message ready," a technician announced. Kira stepped forward. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she would finally be able to tell her people that she was alive. That her mission had not been a complete failure. That humanity was more than they had ever imagined. But before she gave the command, she turned back to look at the people behind her. Yuna, who had climbed down a ladder into darkness and refused to be afraid. G1, who had worked tirelessly to save a stranger's life. Minho, who had accepted an alien into his family without hesitation. Hana, who saw no difference between human and alien, only between friend and stranger. And beyond them, through the windows, the thousands of people who had built this facility, who had studied the technology, who had set aside their differences to work toward a common goal. "Before I send this message," Kira said, "I want to tell you something. In all my years of watching your species, I have seen your wars, your cruelty, your destruction. I have seen you hurt each other in ways that seemed senseless and savage." The room was very quiet. "But I have also seen your kindness, your creativity, your stubborn refusal to give up on each other. I have seen you cross oceans to rescue strangers. I have seen you sacrifice everything for people you will never meet. Kira's voice grew stronger. My people thought we were coming here to save you, to guide you, to protect you from yourselves. But we were wrong. You do not need saving. You do not need guidance. You need only what every intelligent species needs: time, opportunity, the chance to become what you are capable of becoming. She looked at Yuna. A lonely widow found me dying in a hole in the ground. She did not call soldiers. She did not call scientists. She brought me soup. She sat with me in the darkness and told me about her husband. She treated me not as an alien to be studied, but as a person to be known. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. That is who humans are, Kira continued. That is what makes you remarkable. Not your technology, not your intelligence, but your hearts. Your impossible, illogical, beautiful hearts. She turned back to the control panel. Send the message. The technician pressed a button. The array hummed with power. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a signal began its long journey toward the stars. It would take years to arrive. Maybe decades. And there was no guarantee that anyone would receive it. The Watchers might have moved on to other galaxies. They might have forgotten about the Earth mission entirely, but the message was sent. The door was open, and humanity was no longer waiting for someone else to guide them toward the stars. They were ready to walk there themselves. After the transmission was complete, Yuna and Kira walked outside together. The sun was setting behind the mountains. The sky was painted with orange and pink and purple. Dohim would have loved this, Yuna said quietly. He always believed that we were not alone in the universe. He just never imagined Proof would be sleeping under a broken shack. Do you miss him? Every day. But the pain is different now. It is not a wound anymore. It is more like a scar. It reminds me of what I had, what I still have, what I can still give. She took Kira's hand. The alien's skin was smooth and warm now. The scales caught the fading light and reflected it in soft patterns. Thank you, Yuna said. For what? For giving me a reason to keep going. When I bought that shack, I thought I was going there to hide, to be alone with my grief. But instead, I found you. And through you, I found a whole new purpose. Kira squeezed her hand gently. When I crashed on this planet, I thought I had failed, that my existence was meaningless, that I would die alone and forgotten. The alien looked up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. But instead, I found you. And through you, I found a whole new family. Jiwan appeared behind them, carrying Hannah on her hip. Grandmother, Hannah said, reaching toward Yuna. It was one of the first words she had learned. Yuna took the child in her arms and held her close. This is your future, she said to Kira. This is what humanity looks like. Messy and imperfect and stubborn, but full of love. Always full of love. Kira looked at the small family gathered on the observation deck. An old widow, a young doctor, a quiet husband, a curious child, and an alien who had traveled across the stars only to find that home was not a planet or a species. Home was the people who refused to let you be alone. I came here to watch over your species, Kira said, to guide you from above. But that was wrong. You do not need watchers looking down at you. You need friends standing beside you. She placed her hand on Yuna's shoulder. I was the last of my kind, alone for 800 years. But I am not alone anymore. Yuna smiled up at her. None of us are, she said. That is the point. That is what it means to be human. We carry each other. We lift each other up. We never leave anyone behind in the darkness. She looked out at the stars. And now, thanks to you, we are going to share that with the rest of the universe. The night deepened around them. The stars grew brighter. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, A message traveled onward, carrying with it a simple truth. Humanity was ready, not because they were strong, not because they were advanced, not because they had technology or weapons or power, but because they had each other. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.